Hello everyone, this is Guatemalans, and this is going to be the poverty and infographics video on the country in Central America called Guatemala. Guatemala is a country that is the fourth highest rank in poverty in the world. Guatemala is so poor that most of the people and average people there live off of $1 a day. $1 a day. And an average American, that's a lot more than that for a human spends a day for his home and food, water, and many other things. Now, let's look at one thing. Let's look at many subjects of how Guatemalan people are struggling to withstand these subjects to survive in such harsh, poor conditions. Number one, food. Now, what's going on with food that's so bad for Guatemala? Or should I say, Guatemalan people that are poor? Well, the most common foods, or otherwise the most cheapest foods that Guatemalans can afford, are called tortillas. And they can't afford any better foods than tortillas. Tortillas is a cheap food, but the problem is it's not nutritious at all. It's just corn dough, sometimes with salt or pepper, and that doesn't have no nutrition value at all. And if you live off of tortillas, then you won't have any nutrition, which means you have nothing to feed your cells in your body, which will shut down, and your body will get lethargic, and eventually you will die. The most common kinds of foods in Guatemala are, let's see, number one, we got rice, we got corn, tortillas, beans. Those are the four main things that most Guatemalans eat. Now, why can't they just buy food? Like I said, Guatemalans live off $1 a day. They don't have enough money to buy good food. And if they don't have enough good food, they can't sustain their bodies, they can't support their kids, and that's where they eventually die. But what about the farmers? Exactly. If the Guatemalan cannot afford to get money, then it can make its own farm where they grow corn, rice, radishes. But they do need seeds in all that soil. And that's the issue there when it comes to farming. Now, moving on to the food subject. Since the Guatemalans can't afford good food, they can't support their bodies or other people that need to support and feed, eventually leading to death. And forcing them to become laborers or farmers. That's where there's so many farmers in the poor areas in the world. Because since they can't buy food, they're gonna have to try to grow their own, which is a lot of wasted time. Not a waste of time, which is very time consuming, takes a while, and it requires a lot of stuff for farming. Number two, water. Now, most of the water, we all know, is contaminated in Central America. There's bottled water and there's filtered water, but that's expensive for an average Guatemalan person that lives in the poor areas. Now, what's in the water that's so bad? Well, number one, there is bacteria. The number listed the bacteria, and including E. coli. E. coli is in water a lot, and E. coli is a bacteria that literally makes you go diarrhea and vomit because it lives in your intestines in your body and literally will mess you up. And second one, we got giardia. They live in your intestines and eat most of the food that comes through, which makes you starve. Going back to the food subject. And if it make you starve, you won't get good nutrients and you will eventually die out. And there are worms that make you nauseous, diarrhea, vomiting, many other bad things. And they can actually really decrease the chances of a person in Guatemala's life. So, going on to the water. Well, why can't they just filter out the water? You need a stove or to just put it on fire, but you need to buy firewood. Since Guatemala is in Central America, there's a lot of tropical areas and it's hard to get some dry wood in the rainforests or in such humid conditions. Firewood can be very expensive for an average Guatemala. If firewood costs more money, then how are they going to afford firewood to start a fire, to cook, or to filter out their waters? Stoves. And they can't afford that stuff because their jobs they can't afford because they live off $1 a day. Now, since they can't get water, then they're gonna have to drink it because that's all they got for hydration, and that'll make them sick and possibly die. Next subject, why can't they just get a better job? Or specifically, what's making them poor if they can just try to profit? Well, this is a thing in business that should be known when you try to go in business. When there's a small store and there's a bigger store, and the bigger store has more stuff and the smaller store has less stuff, the people are more likely to go to the bigger store since it's better. Now, if the bigger store has more money because more people are coming to it, that means it has more profit, and it has more profit, it can use that money for something else, and it can use the other money to sustain their business. They can add more money and it can sustain it. The bigger it gets, the more people will come. The more people will come, the more money will come. And the more money they'll come, the more sustainable their business can become. But if there's another small business instead of it, they're not going to get anyone to go in their stores because they'll be outcompeted by others. This is exactly like the place Two Sounds, Peña Blanca, and Guatemala City. If they can't make money, how are they going to sustain their business? They can't sustain their business without any money. People get to their business in the first place because they got a loan from the bank, but you're going to have to pay the bank back, or a loan from relative or anything, but you have to pay the bank back. Something like, since the banks are very expensive and if they can't speak Spanish, then how are they going to do contracts or sign anything if they can't even speak Spanish? That's why they can't grow and they can't get more money, which is why they eventually lead up to farming, because it's the easiest and cheapest strategy to making money, farming. What about their shelters? Guatemalan people have struggled a lot with their shelters. Most shelters in Guatemala are very, very terrible. By that I mean they're not good and safe homes. The floors are made of dirt because they can't afford to get a good house. And most of the house is made of sheet metal, which is a cheap board of metal that is like a little thing made for roofs. And that's the most common thing used for poor homes. If they don't have a dirt floor, then things will be bad. Like the bugs, most bugs, they're very dangerous bugs in tropical areas. For example, mosquitoes, there's a lot of mosquitoes of them. Mosquitoes can carry diseases like, they can carry stuff like malaria, stuff like that. And if they, infect a Guatemalan, because the Guatemalan doesn't have a sustainable home, the Guatemalan doesn't have any money, it can't afford medicine from the doctors. Some medications, antibiotics, which is for bacteria, cost 300 quetzals, which is a lot for a Guatemalan. And if they can't afford it, how are they going to get any better? They can actually die. You can die from malaria, and that's bad because malaria is a terrible disease from mosquitoes. These were the 4 reasons and 4 subjects of what make a Guatemalan struggle in poverty. Thank you for watching. This was my Guatemalan project. If you like it, please leave a like and subscribe. Like always, keep it nice.